PT on Ice, the Institute of Clinical Excellence. Good morning. My name is Dustin Jones. I am a faculty member under the Older Adult Division with Christina Previtt. Our course is kicking off June 10th. So this is the third cohort of Modern Management of the Older Adult. And yeah, June 10th, that is this Sunday. So if you want to hop in that course, we still have some seats left. I would highly encourage you to do so. We're really excited about how this course is tangibly changing practice and changing people's lives. I mean, we got an email last night from a previous student of something that she implemented from the course and just completely changed, the trajectory of that patient's life potentially. And that's something that's really exciting for us, and we want to share that with you all. So today's PT on Ice topic is going to be around the concept of how you can become the provider of choice. This is a big term that we hear often in the older adult world with a lot of the people that you may see talk at APTA Next. With the Macmillan lecture, Carol Lewis, she mentioned this. It goes around the circle in terms of what can we do to be seen as the go-to people for older adults. And I want to talk to y'all about that because y'all are working with older adults too, especially if you're in an outpatient clinic. Probably a third of your patients more than likely are going to be considered, older adults. So this episode kind of stems from some time that I spent with a good friend earlier this week. This friend, has an injury, and so it was just a little consultation. I went over to their house. This wasn't, I didn't have my home health PT hat on. This person was about mid-50s, and for me, that's like a pediatric patient. But we were talking, and she was kind of giving me kind of her story of some of her issues related to what she was dealing with. And she kept talking about this chiropractor. This chiropractor, literally, hung the moon. I mean, they fixed her back pain. They fixed her knee pain. They fixed her foot pain. They helped with her nutrition. They helped with her sleep. They helped with, a little bit of her depression. So many facets of her life have been impacted by this one healthcare provider. Granted, I didn't necessarily agree with what a lot of the chiropractor was saying in terms of their explanations and whatnot, but they did an amazing job at improving the quality of life of that patient. And it got me thinking, that's impressive. That's impressive that person can impact so many areas of life. When I think about traditional physical therapy, that doesn't necessarily come to mind. Typically, a patient may come to you because they have knee pain, for example, and you fix their knee pain, and then typically we run out of visits, and then they have to be discharged. And from that moment on, you may be considered the guy or gal that helped that person with their knee pain. You're the knee pain guy or gal. Or, it may be someone where they had, let's say, a hip replacement, and you helped them out, post-op, you got them back to where they want to be, and then you had to discharge them. So you're now the post-op guy or gal. Our impact is typically in the traditional PT setting is kind of, it's in a niche. It's not very broad and encompassing. And I think we are doing ourselves a disservice and our patients a disservice by being so narrowed and focused. And you've heard this before, but Mike Eisenhardt is preaching this, from the mountaintops. So we need to, zoom out, have the bigger picture, and solve problems for patients, not just knee pain and back pain, but we need to improve their health. And the term that he uses is a conservative care provider. And I'll let him unpack what that term actually means and how he perceives it. But I do want to speak to what he talked about on Monday. So if y'all heard Monday's episode, he talked about organized chaos. And I'll be sure to put a link in the post so y'all can reference some of these references that I'll mention down. But a conservative care provider, so he's going to answer that at some point. But the organizing chaos thing is very, very important that he mentioned on Monday. So many of our patients are coming to us with these competing narratives, what they think is wrong with them. They are worrying about things that they should not worry about, and then they're not worrying about things that they should worry about. There's just complete chaos going through their mind most of the time, and we can come alongside them and organize that chaos. So what does that tangibly look like? So that means, we answer their questions, we address their concerns. But what I want to really talk about today in terms of screening is that we stratify the risk. We identify what they're at risk for, whether it's a fall, whether it's some type of adverse event, whether it's a decline in functional mobility. And in particular, in the older adult population, we have some tremendous data to back up a lot of these screens that we do. Y'all are probably familiar with the functional movement screen. It's super popular in the athletic arena in outpatient, orthopedics for sure. But the FMS has come under fire for actually being a valid tool to predict things that it says it predicts. Not to say, it's not a useful tool. It can be very useful, but it may not do a lot of things that it's claimed to do. That's not necessarily the case in the Jerry PT literature. I mean, we've got, some amazing studies, some with over 2 million people in terms of the sample size, showing that we can perform simple tests that correlate, to a particular outcome, which is very valuable for us and especially valuable for you all in particular that are in the outpatient orthopedic setting, to where you can impact people earlier up the chain than someone like me, for example, that's in home health. So let's talk about stratifying risk, some of these screens that are going to be helpful for you. This is not an all-encompassing list. There's tons of things that we can look at, but we need to be selective. And these are about 5 of, for me, some of the most effective and evidence-based screens that you can do with your older adult patients. So when we think about screening, and when I go back to my outpatient orthopedic days, now I think about, when would I use some of this stuff? Because in home health, it's a different arena. The interactions with the patients are different. But in outpatient, you all are well aware of this. But if someone comes to you with low back pain, you're probably not going to dive in to doing a falls risk assessment day one, or you're not going to maybe do a floor transfer test with this person if they're coming in and just hunched over in excruciating pain. You're going to address their pain. You're going to address what they're concerned about. That limiting factor, the thing that is driving them absolutely bonkers. You're going to be that person to fix that problem. And that's what we should do. But at some point, as those symptoms are becoming more and more controlled, as they're progressing in rehab, there is that sweet moment where we can, kind of zoom out, big picture, and really see how we can stratify risk of other things, so we can identify issues, we can organize the chaos, and that person will see us as a provider of choice because we've made such a big impact in their lives in so many different facets, not just their back pain. So first one, some of these y'all have definitely heard of before on this podcast, but the first one are vitals. Vitals are vital. You've seen the hashtag. You've heard us talk about it a ton. I cannot stress that enough, especially in the older adult population. If I had $1 for every time that I took someone's blood pressure and it was too high or too low and that person had no clue but had so many limiting symptoms with it, I would be a millionaire by now. If I had $1 for each time that I had to call a physician to get those medications adjusted, I would also be a millionaire. But I'm not. I'm a physical therapist. But vitals are huge. That's a simple way to get a glimpse of inside that patient, to see how things are going and to see if they are at risk for some type of cardiovascular event or potentially a fall, if they have some type of orthostatic hypotension. So vitals, just check them. It's easy. It doesn't take a lot of time. Do it. I do it every visit. Some people, argue against that, but with the minimal time investment, and especially, in my world in home health, we got to do it. The risk is too high to not do it. So secondly, that kind of goes with the vitals piece, are medications. Not sexy, not that much fun. I don't enjoy medications, but if you identify a drug that is having a significant impact in someone's life, you are going to be the provider of choice for the rest of their life. If you caught that beta blocker that was dosed too high that caused that person to get super lightheaded every time they went to standing, you're going to be a savior when you call that physician and have them lower that dosage. So be familiar with medications, screen medications. I'm going to put a link to the Beers list. So these are medications that we don't necessarily recommend for heavy use in older adults. It's a long list. Don't feel like you got to memorize it, but you should know some of the categories and be able to see some of those suffixes in that medication list. It will be that red flag, like the beta blockers and the benzos, for example. So check that out in the links in the comment section. Third, I've talked about this before as well, the steady fall risk assessment. This was put out by the CDC. The power of asking the question, have you had a fall within the past year? And are you afraid of falling? Has tremendous value for your patients to be able to predict how much risk they are of a future fall. Just the fact that they've had a previous fall or have had fear, that exponentially increases their risk of having a future fall. And you can identify that and ask them that question. And the study can also lead you to a further falls risk assessment that looks at their timed up and go, looks at balance measures, and then can lead you down the path to look at their vision, to look at their home environment, and to check medications and things like that to give a more thorough assessment. So the study is a great tool that y'all can use very quickly, very easily in your outpatient setting. So that's 3. The 4th one is hand grip strength. There was a recent article that we reviewed on the Senior Rehab Project that took over 2 million men and women. 2 million men and women. It was a big meta-analysis, a lot of subjects that were looking at the correlation of strength to all-cause mortality. They did a hand grip strength, dynamometer, and the weaker you are with your hand grip strength, the higher risk of all-cause mortality that you have. So not to say that grip strength, is necessarily causative of anything, but it just correlates to general weakness. A hand grip dynamometer you can get relatively cheap now, super quick. You can get that number, and there's normative data that you can reference to get an idea of if this person is generally weak, which will put them at risk for all-cause mortality, a fall, further functional decline, and you can have them lift heavy things in a very controlled manner to help get them stronger and prevent a lot of those things. Super quick test, very easy, hand grip strength. I would highly recommend that. And then last but not least, this one is kind of new in the literature. It's the floor transfer test. So this is a simple test where you go from standing to supine to standing, and you basically just time it. There's some normative data. This is not backed up as solid as some of the other screens that I've mentioned, but it's very valuable in the sense of gauging someone's floor transfer capability, their fear of getting on the ground, which can definitely influence their performance when they're on their feet. But they've also correlated performances of the floor transfer test to other things that we've talked about on here, like the short performance physical battery, the SPPB test. So I'll post a link to the article for that one, but that's a really quick screen, standing, supine standing, time it, check it to the normative data, and you'll be able to get a good glimpse of several things with that patient. So those are 5 simple things. We definitely, you want to think bigger picture, but in terms of older adults, and we look at the evidence, these are 5 solid screens that you can use, in many settings, but definitely for y'all in the outpatient ortho setting. And I do want to mention, all that to say, I don't want to ignore sleep, nutrition, a lot of these other things that we talk about in the ICE world and the APHPT world. But I just wanted to stick to some of these, evidence-based screens that we have for older adults. So if you utilize those, if you help someone with their back pain or their knee pain or whatever, typical complaint that they come to you with, and then you perform some of these screens and have a positive impact in their life in some of these other areas that they may or may not have been aware of, you're going to be that go-to provider. You're going to be like that chiropractor that my friend absolutely loves and will go to them even if they have a bout of diarrhea. You will be the go-to provider, which will basically create a lifelong patient and be very fulfilling for you too, knowing that you have such a dramatic impact in someone's life. So check out the links in the notes for this, y'all. I'll put some pretty helpful things in there that you can reference later. But yeah, become a provider of choice. Utilize screens and serve your patients well. So that's all I've got. 14 minutes, 10 seconds. Once again, Modern Management of the Older Adult is starting Sunday, June 10th with Christina Previtt and I. 8 weeks, 16 CEUs. We have a weekly meeting. You have weekly assignments that are relatively short, nothing too crazy, but where you implement some of the material that we discuss. I am very proud of this course. I know Christina is as well, and we want to share this information with y'all and with the ultimate goal of advancing care for older adults, because as you know, the bar is pretty low right now. We want to raise it up a little bit so we can serve those people well. So I hope y'all have a lovely Wednesday. I'll be back with you in a couple weeks. and check out ptonice.com to sign up for the course and all the other fun stuff we got going on in Iceland. All right, y'all take care.